please rise in body or spirit and join in the singing of our opening hymn in the Teal Hymnal, number 1053. How could anyone ever tell you? It's short, so we're going to sing it 2 times. I will ask that the first time you sing it, see yourself singing it to all the people that you know. And the second time you sing it as though you were looking directly at yourself in a mirror. Our opening words today are the words of Wayne Arneson. Take courage, my friend. The way is often hard. The path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Good morning, and welcome, everyone. On this glorious day. I was telling somebody this morning, I understand why my dog, when she comes in on days like this in the morning from the outside, how she gets the zoomies, because that's exactly how I feel. My name is Donna Zimmerman, and I will be your worship leader this morning. My pronouns are she and her. If you are new to this church or our faith, you will find that Unitarian Universalists travel many different paths to discover purpose and meaning in our lives. However, we unite in our belief in the worth and dignity of everyone. We believe it is our obligation to express our faith through acts of compassion, love, courage, and justice. We're people who ask questions and actively invite intellectual and spiritual growth. We practice a life-affirming faith. I want to take the opportunity to welcome any first-time visitors or returning guests here today. We're so glad you're here and hope you'll feel welcome and will want to get to know us. Be sure to stop by the welcome table at the front entrance to the sanctuary and fill out a name tag, get an information packet about our church and our denomination. If you haven't already done so, you're invited to sign as a guest so that we can get to know you by name with that name tag. We offer regular learning about BBUUC classes if you're interested in those or interested in becoming a member. Our membership chair, Julie Smithers, will be happy to talk to you about the path to membership. You can also ask anyone with a sticker on their name tag that says, "New, ask me." Duh. If you are ready to jump in and help out, we're always looking for volunteers. We have opportunities to help out with refreshments in the kitchen, and if you're interested, there are volunteer sign-up sheets at the back of the sanctuary. We would like everyone to join us after the service at the back of the sanctuary for refreshments, fair trade coffee, and terrific conversation. We have all come to this church from many different paths, from just about every faith and no faith. What unites us is our personal search for growth, justice, love, and service. This is embodied in your order of service, in our Unitarian principles that are printed in the order of service. Together, we support each other in our individual journeys. We will never change this world by just going to church. We need to be the church and live out our values in the world. A building doesn't confine us or define us because our faith is meant to be lived out in the world. Now, if you will please ensure that your electronic devices and all things that go bump in the night are silenced, we will enter into our sacred time together. Please remain seated and join me in reciting our Congregational covenant printed in your order of service. We covenant to engage one another with honesty, kindness, and respect, to value diversity, seek understanding of our differences, and practice gracious accountability with care, love, and empathy. We make these promises to those who are here and those yet to come, so that we may be a safe, welcoming, and beloved community of acceptance, learning, and transformation. Now please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our call to worship. The words are printed in your order of service. We light our chalice each Sunday morning as a symbol of our faith. I invite Cindy Damon to please come forward and light the chalice as I read the words of Paul Sprecher. We light this chalice in memory of the courage who have struggled for freedom, the persistence of those who have struggled for justice, and the love of those who built beloved communities to carry on the light of hope.
Speaking words of wisdom, let it be. let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be.
Thank you, Caitlin. Now our Director of Lifespan Religious Education, Jenn Jones, will come forward for our Time for All Ages.
Hello, everybody. Can I have all the kids come up front? And I'm actually going to do it right over here. We're going to crisscross applesauce and sit right in this area, if you want. And if you can see the photos from there, you're totally good. So we have a book today called My Shadow is Purple. And it's by Scott Stewart, and it's illustrated by Scott Stewart. My dad has a shadow that's blue as a berry, and my mom is as pink as a blossoming cherry. There's only a choice, a 2 or a 1, but mine's quite different. It's both, and it's none. If they're straight, then mine is a circle, for my shadow is different. My shadow is purple. My shadow loves playing with all sorts of toys, things loved by girls and things loved by boys. I dance with the pinks as they turn and they spin, and I play with the blues as they lose and they win. Some of my friends think I'm simply confused, but I have the thing I love the most is not having to choose. Some tell me I'm blue, only blues can be strong. But my mom's strong too, so I think that they're wrong. Some tell me I'm pink because I'm the most caring. But my dad is always crying, loving, and sharing. Why can't I love sports and dancing and trains and ponies and glitters and engines and planes? Why must I choose and exclude all the rest? I love choosing both because both is the best. And now it's time for the greatest event. The school dance is here. The invite's been sent. I'm ready to rock and I'm feeling cute. My mom made my skirt, my dad made my suit. I bounce through the door and I gasp as I enter. The room's split in two, right down the center. Blue shadows go left and pink shadows go right. And once we're split up, we'll kickstart this night. Everyone laughs as they head to their zones, and I'm right in the middle. I'm left all alone. I look to the left where the shadows are blue. They're waving me over, saying, "You are blue too." Then I look to the right as I struggle to think. They call me over, "Come on over, you are pink." The teacher walks up rather amused. "I know that you're different, but now you must choose." My heart starts racing, and my tears fill my eyes. I know I must choose, but I don't understand why. The room has gone quite quiet, and everyone's looking. My cheeks are so red, I feel like they're cooking. If I can't be purple, then I cannot stay. "I guess I'll go home," I quietly say. I slowly start walking. My legs are like jello. A voice breaks the silence. "My shadow is yellow." My eyes are open wide. My shadow, it gawks as a child walks to the middle, looks up and talks. There's more than two colors our shadows can be. I was too scared before, but blue is not me. I know from the outside blue fits like a glove, but my shadow is yellow, which to me feels like love. They turn with a smile and take hold of my hand. Who wants to join us? There's a room here to stand. At first, no one moves. And then a hand in the air. My shadow is brown as a big grizzly bear. My shadow is red, mine's silver, mine's green, mine's violet, mine's orange, mine's aquamarine. They're all rushed to join us wherever their color, blue, pink, and purple, and shadows called other. I look to each shadow, no two are the same. One each happy face, there's no trace of shame. Each different and special and fully unique. No color is stronger, no color is weak. The teacher comes over as we joined as one. Whatever your color, start dancing. Have fun. And with that, our story is told. I would like to invite Sean to come up and help me lead back to religious education class. Okay, so pick this up. There you go. As we pass this flame from one generation to the next, the congregation may remain seated and join me in singing 413, Go Now in Peace.
Every week in our church, we take up an offering. It's good to remind ourselves that the offering is symbolic as well as practical. It's symbolic because it reminds us that our communal giving represents how we live out our values. And it is practical because it is through our pledges that we build our budget, fund our programs and ministries, pay our staff, and finance the comfort and beauty of our building. Many choose to submit their pledge electronically to the church at any convenient time. However, we continue to pass the plate during the worship service to make a community expression of thanks for the blessing of abundance, to visibly bring in the harvest at this most cherished hour of the week. Our offering says that the act of giving is essential to our spiritual well-being, as anything we do here on Sunday mornings. For the month of October, the plate donations, that is, cash given and any check that has UUA in the memo line, will be donated to the UUA Disaster Relief Fund to assist the folks in Fort Myers who were devastated by Hurricane Ian. During this time-honored ritual, we ask usually that you take the basket, even if you're only giving symbolically, and pass it to the next person of the row behind you. But we're all really spread out today, so just do what makes sense and follow the direction of our offertory ushers, and that would be Ron Furster and Chuck Smithers.
Good morning. October is a special month to this congregation and to the Unitarian Universalist Association. Not only is it the month when we celebrate LGBTQ History Month, it is also the month when our Soul Matters theme is courage. And today, I plan to touch on both of those topics. And in fact, I hope that I can do three things. The first is to persuade you that we especially need courage right now. The second is to touch on some sources that will help us build our courage. And the third is to suggest some things we might do once we have that heightened level of courage. And I can't resist starting with this one example of courage that I just learned about in the last few days. There's a group of women in our country, and they call themselves the pill fairies. And the pill they're referring to is the abortion pill. This is a group of women, anywhere from middle class up to wealthy, who can afford to travel pretty much whenever they want to. And it seems to just so happen that they're all taking their vacations in Mexico right now. And while they're there enjoying their time as a tourist, they go to a pharmacy where the abortion pill is available over the counter, and they buy them. Then they smuggle the pills back into the United States across the border, and they get them into the hands of women and girls who need abortions. And of course, they're risking fines and imprisonment when they do that. So they certainly have courage. Before I go any further, I want to make one thing especially clear. The fact that I'm standing before you talking about courage is not because I'm any particularly good example of courage myself. My courage has failed me many times over the years. For example, I went to high school with a girl who had a disability. It was a very visible disability. One day at lunch, one of the boys in our class, who was a bully, began mocking this girl's speech and facial expression. I thought about telling him to stop, but I didn't. No one in our group did anything to stop him, and neither did I. That experience has been my own personal lesson of a truth that was taught to us at least as early as Aristotle. And that truth is this: courage is first among the virtues, because without it, we can't reliably practice any of the other virtues. I had the virtue of kindness, at least to some small extent, when that bully mocked my classmate. But that did her absolutely no good. And it did me absolutely no good, because I was afraid. So, in spite of the times I have lost my courage over the years, and in fact, maybe even because of those times, I ask you to consider courage with me today, in the hope that by contemplating it together, we may build that cardinal virtue of courage. Why do we need to talk about courage? Isn't it just some word that somebody on some committee put down as the theme in Soul Matters for October? No, it's actually much more than that. We don't realize that we are called on especially to have courage right now. Think about the services we've had this month which show us that courage really is our theme. First, we had Reverend Carmen Emerson and Claudia Marshall help us have courage by their sermon, If Not Us, Then Who? If Not Now, Then When? Then David Dean literally encouraged us. He put courage into us when he shared Reverend Rod Richards' sermon, Where Seldom Is Heard. And last week, Reverend Tracy Barrett called us to bold action. Today, in our service celebrating LGBTQ Pride Month, History Month, I will endeavor to continue this mindful, intentional emphasis on courage, because I do believe we especially need courage right now. Why? Because of the time and place in which we are living, characterized as it is by several recent events I would like to describe. I hope that by enumerating these recent occurrences, I will persuade you that we need courage now. Here's my list. First, a 10-year-old rape victim in Ohio experienced not just the trauma of rape, but then the terrifying realization that she was pregnant. She desperately needed an abortion, not just because of the emotional damage she would suffer if she continued the pregnancy to term, but also because of the physical injury that would result to her body. And in response to this girl's need, the state of Ohio, through its laws, effectively said, no, we require you, 10-year-old girl, to carry this pregnancy to term and give birth to your rapist's child. I hope that you will not give Ohio a pass merely because the girl was able to go to Indiana and have the procedure there. Not only do we face the fact that not everyone can afford that travel, we also face the fact that the laws of Ohio demand this result, regardless of what other states are doing. The laws of other states are mutable and really largely irrelevant. The fact is that Ohio's deliberately chosen, intentional policy is that 10-year-old rape victims can't have abortions. Neither can cancer victims whose treatment is being compromised by their pregnancy. Neither can women facing severe fetal abnormalities that will almost certainly result in the death of the fetus before term. And it's not just Ohio. In Florida, an incest victim was denied an abortion. And in Florida, we're surrounded with all kinds of other states that have these terrible laws. And so this girl had to travel several states away in order to have the procedure done. And it's not just Ohio. There are many other states with such laws. Now, those aren't the only recent events which I believe call us to courage. The next few items on my list are from our schools. Teachers and counselors in Pasco County, Orange County, Duval County, and elsewhere in Florida were required before school started this year to remove the rainbow-colored stickers on the door to their classroom, which had the words printed on them, "Safe Space." In the past, these stickers assured students that they could talk to the teacher or counselor in confidence about any thoughts, feelings, ideas, or questions they had, including those about possibly being a member of the LGBTQ community. Now those stickers are gone. The teachers and counselors were forced to scrape them off their windows and doors. Teachers are also prohibited from wearing rainbow-colored clothing and rainbow lanyards. Teachers who had photographs of same-sex spouses or partners on their desks have been required to take those pictures home. Next on my list of the reasons we need courage now is this recent event. A history professor from Flagler College was scheduled to give a lecture on the civil rights movement. The audience would be a group of high school teachers in South Florida. But the lecture was canceled based on accusations that what he was really going to lecture about, say it with me if you've guessed it, what he was really going to lecture about was critical race theory. A lecture on the civil rights movement is critical race theory. And even if it was, a group of highly educated high school teachers were too fragile to hear those truths about our nation's history. How about this recent event? A kindergarten teacher in Pensacola worked at a school where the student body was predominantly Black. He wanted his students to have images of heroes and worthy people they could look up to in the classroom. So he put up posters of Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, George Washington Carver, and Colin Powell. The school took those posters down. And to conclude this list, because I just don't have time to tell you everything, let's at least hear the names of the 3 transgender people of color who have been murdered in Jacksonville so far this year. Princess Duval, Nedra Sequence Morris, and Sanaj Billingsley. And those are just the ones that were reported. So that was my effort to try to persuade you that we really do need special courage right now. Given that we're faced with these events and many more that require courage, what does our faith tell us about courage? Our president, Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, spoke to this question in her UU World editorial. The title is "Love the Hell Out of This World." She writes, quote, "We live in a tumultuous time of struggle that is literally life and death for many people. What to do is not always clear." Reverend Frederick Gray continues by describing the way in which we might respond to a world in the midst of that struggle, which for many people is life and death. Quote, here, in the midst of that struggle, is a spiritual challenge to practice being fully present, to take in the tumult, the pain, the anger, the discomfort, our own and that of others, without turning away, without placating or denying, but instead holding the complexity and allowing it to deepen our compassion and help guide us how we act. Reverend Frederick Gray continues, this is no time for a casual faith and no time to go it alone. The opposite of a casual faith is a deep sense of purpose that recognizes how our faith matters. And when we are called by a bold mission, we realize we can't do it alone. Close quote. We can take courage not only from words like the ones I just read, but also from the deeds of our Unitarian and Universalist forebears. Unitarian minister Norbert Tapek was the founder of the modern Unitarian Church in what was then Czechoslovakia. Reverend Tapek took a stand. In Nazi-occupied Europe, he insistently, publicly promoted religious liberty. The Gestapo arrested him and sent him to Dachau. He was killed in 1942. We can also consider the life and death of Unitarian Universalist minister James Reeb, who traveled south in 1965 to answer Dr. King's call to march from Selma to Montgomery. He went despite the danger, and he was murdered there. We can look to the example of Unitarian minister Reverend Waite Still Sharp and his wife Martha. They left behind their home in Massachusetts. They left behind the church he was pastoring, and they left their 8-year-old and their 3-year-old in the care of relatives. They did all that because the American Unitarian Association had asked them to go to Europe to help refugees. They did so many brave things, and I have time only to tell you one. On a single night in 1940, Martha Sharp helped 27 children escape from Vichy, France by train. 9 of the children were Jewish, and the others were children of partisans and academics who had criticized Hitler in the Third Reich. Years later, many years later, Waite Still was asked why he and his wife took such a dangerous assignment. And here's his answer. We went because our Unitarian faith told us something had to be done. And last in my series of lives that can inspire us to courage, I want to share a more detailed story. It is not about a Unitarian Universalist, but it's so appropriate for LGBTQ History Month. Until I began preparing for this sermon, I had never heard of Willem Arendeus. But once I found his story, I knew I had to share it with you because it is a thrilling example of courage. It made me want to stand up and cheer, and then it made me want to sit down and cry. Willem Arendeus was a gay Dutch teenager rejected by his parents because of his homosexuality. After his father threw him out of the family home, Willem moved to Amsterdam to work as an artist and writer. In 1942 and 1943, Jews were subject to mass deportation from Amsterdam to the death camps. That's when Willem realized something had to be done. So he enlisted all of his gay and lesbian friends to work with him in the Dutch resistance, an entire cell in the Dutch resistance made up entirely of gays and lesbians. The primary task of Willem's group was forging identity papers so that Jews could avoid being deported to the death camps. They were wonderful forgeries. They looked exactly like the real thing. But there was a problem. Amsterdam had a civil registry office with records on everyone. Even a person who had one of the skillfully made IDs from Willem's group could be found out and deported if the Nazis took the time to look at the records at the civil registry office. So Willem and his group didn't give up. They realized that something more had to be done. So they came up with a plot to bomb the civil registry office. They meticulously planned this attack to destroy as many records as possible without harming anyone. They prepared for weeks. The people in his group who were skilled at sewing made police uniforms that were essentially identical to the uniforms worn by Amsterdam's police. On the chosen night, they all walked together in their police uniforms to the civil registry building, where they encountered guards. Willem, in his wonderful police uniform, very confidently told the guards, "We're here to search this building for explosives because we received a tip that this building will be bombed tonight." I'd say that was a pretty good tip. The guards believed Willem and let the group in. The resistance fighters overpowered the guards, and two members of the group who were medical students injected the guards with phenobarbital. They carried the unconscious guards into a nearby structure so the fire would not harm them. Then Willem and the others just ransacked that civil registry office. To a former Protestant like me, it brings up images of Jesus overturning the money changers' tables in the temple. They put all the records into a central space and they poured lighter fluid over them. As they left the building, they set off a series of timed explosions to ignite a fire and destroy the records. When the Nazis noticed that the civil registry building was on fire, they called the Amsterdam Fire Department. But what they didn't realize was that Willem had already thought of that and had enlisted Amsterdam's firefighters in the conspiracy. Can't you just imagine those firefighters answering the phone that night when the Nazis called. "Hello, you've reached the fire department." "What's that? A fire at the Civil Registry building?" "You don't say. We'll get right on that." But in fact, the firefighters responded very slowly. When they finally did arrive, they put out the fire, but they didn't leave. They kept hosing water, more and more and more water, onto the records so that even records which had survived the fire would be rendered useless by water damage. It was a brilliant plan, and it worked. The fire and the water destroyed approximately 800,000 records that night. But the Nazis announced a substantial reward for information leading to the prosecution of the bombers. Nothing happened at first, but eventually someone reported Willem. We don't know who. When Willem was interrogated, he confessed, and he took complete responsibility. He denied that anyone else was involved in the attack. But the Nazis searched his apartment, and they found a notebook which contained the names of the other conspirators. They were all arrested. Willem and the others were convicted and sentenced to die, but they died knowing that many people were safe because they had carried out their final mission in this life. These heroes were taken from the courtroom directly to the firing squad. Willem's lawyer was allowed to attend the execution. Just before Willem was shot, he turned to his lawyer and he said, possibly thinking about his father, he said, "Let it be known that homosexuals are not cowards." And so on this Sunday in LGBTQ History Month, when our Soul Matters theme for worship is courage, it's my responsibility and my privilege to deliver Willem's message once again. Homosexuals are not cowards. So far, we have considered two ways of strengthening our courage. First, the words and teachings of our UU leaders, and second, the lives and yes, sometimes the deaths of courageous people, most of them Unitarian Universalists. Now I want to mention a third source of courage. We can study our Unitarian Universalist principles and gain courage from them. If I had been a Unitarian Universalist when that bully mocked my classmate, maybe that would have given me courage. And when I thought about her inherent worth and dignity, maybe that would have strengthened my courage enough that I could stand up to that bully. And it's not just our first principle from which we can draw courage. For example, our second and sixth principles speak to us of justice. Standing for justice can be costly, and sometimes it takes courage. You know, courage truly is the cardinal virtue, as we considered a few minutes ago. Because if we lack courage, we cannot consistently practice any of the other virtues, including those which are reflected in our principles. Part 3, Now that we have quickened our courage, what shall we do with it? Ultimately, that question has to be answered by the people taking the action. I can't tell you what to do. Whether it's running for office, speaking up at a school board meeting, marching in a protest, serving as a poll watcher for the party of your choice, asking the hard questions at a candidate's town hall meeting and refusing to back down, volunteering as an escort at a woman's choice clinic of Jacksonville. Whatever actions we choose, they will take courage. Our congregation and its individual members have a long history of acting with courage. But we need even more courage, and we need it now. If LGBTQ teachers are banned from our public schools, it will be too late. If Black History Month is canceled as being part of critical race theory, it will be too late. Once women and girls are routinely dying from back alley abortions, which I'm sure is already happening, it will be too late. Some of you might be thinking, Elizabeth, over here. I listened as you spoke the words of our Unitarian Universalist faith leaders, and I heard the stories of those martyrs and heroes, and I'm familiar with our principles, but none of that helped enough. I'm still afraid to do any of the things you just listed. For any of you who share those feelings with my imaginary questioner, I'll let you in on a secret. I'm scared too. And I hope that all of us who feel that fear can benefit from the words of Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Paul Oakley, who wrote that the signature dwelling place of courage is in the frightened human heart. He didn't say merely that the frightened human heart is a dwelling place of courage. He said that's the only place where real courage can be found. He said that the very presence of fear is what makes courage both necessary and possible. And please remember, when we are afraid, the words of Susan Frederick Gray, none of us can do it alone. That's why we're together in this body that we call BBUUC. May we all find the courage that's needed in our day and time. And when we are afraid to do what must be done, may we remember that the fear in our hearts serves only to prove that our courage is real.
Wow, I don't have words. And if you know me, you know how rare that is. Please rise in body or spirit and turn to 318 in your gray hymnal, "We Would Be One," then remain standing afterwards for our closing words. Now Cindy Damon will return to extinguish the chalice as I say our closing words. It takes courage to step out of your comfort zone into the unknown, regardless of why we are seeking safety in whatever our closet is named. It takes courage to do something differently, to be something different. As this chalice is extinguished, take with you the words of Edward Teller. When you get to the end of all the light you have known and go to take a step into the darkness of the unknown, you must believe that one of two things will happen. There will be something for you to stand on, or you will be taught how to fly. May it be so. Our service is ended. Now go fly.